Thank you for tuning in to today's share, which is on the gifts found within the dark night of the soul. So I'm going to explore what the dark night of the soul is, my experience and understanding, and how there are gifts hidden within this process, the divine purpose to all this, and how this serves the collective shift, awakening process. And I'm going to give some practical guidance for navigating through this, and then close with some tarot and oracle card readings to support this whole process. So the dark night of the soul is a phrase that quite a few of us are familiar with. Very briefly, it is related to alchemy, and it connects to an understanding and awareness which is that follows the mystical traditions and is connected to the natural nature rhythms, where very simply the seed is planted in the darkness, and from the darkness and within the darkness this seed grows. It needs to be hidden and nurtured and nourished. And then this seed pushes up to the light and then grows, for instance, as a tree. Now, the mystics and which alchemy is part of a mystical tradition, and also the whole way of being, I would say, of shamanism, embraces the dark night, embraces the way of being, the perspective, the understanding that there is darkness and light. And as we are part of nature and creation, we are physical beings, but it's also part of our soul journey. It's not just a physical process. And so in alchemy, for instance, there can be this misunderstanding. If viewed purely on the superficial level and on the physical level, it can be seen as just a way of getting gold, finding gold, making gold. But that whole process was revealing the process of refining the soul and linking the spiritual, the elemental, with the physical. It's a journey of evolution and seeing the spiritual as the physical, within the physical. So other cultures, other communities, those that embrace the shamanic way, the mystic way, would hold individuals and the group by initiating and holding initiations that would put individuals into darkness. They would literally, some of the shamanic traditions would bury people. They would not suffocate them, but they would bury them. Or a mystic would go into the wilderness and meditate in a dark cave. There are stories of mystics actually being in buildings, specific buildings, where they would be in darkness. And there's also a tribe people in South America where they do actually do that with young people who they know have this gift to be shamans, and then they are put inside without any light for a number of years. So that is when they come out of that darkness, they then are transformed. They see beyond the physical. So it's also, simply put, has a understanding that the physical experience which our soul is residing in is not the finite journey, that we will carry on, our soul, our consciousness carries on living beyond this physical dimension and realm. When this physical body dies, our soul continues on. And so the dark night of the soul is that threshold between one life being existence to another. We move into a gateway. We move through an unknowing. And through that gateway, we shed the old so that we can move into the new. Like a butterfly must dissolve in a chrysalis to then become a butterfly. And so through this shedding, we become a butterfly from being a caterpillar. It's not to say that the caterpillar is more lowly than the butterfly. So this is the gift that is hidden within this darkness, within this chrysalis. Now the collective humanity is going through a dark night of the soul. And I would suggest that a lot of the collective and the individuals within that collective are not aware of this divine purpose, are not aware that of the soul journey, that we as humanity have come to an end, not just in a chapter of a book, but we have completed the book. And that book, that story, we're at the conclusion. And we are now in this time, which is what my angelic guides told me, in the time of life review, humanity as a whole. So it's key, I would suggest, for us to support ourselves and the collective, is surrendering to this process with this awareness that there is a divine holding. We are being held through this dark night of the soul. Now, when we are in the dark night of the soul, it isn't easy. We can experience traumatic events. Can be divorce, breakdown in relationships, physical ill health, ending of a job, work, anything to do with the holding structure, anything around our home, having to move home, or finding our homes being flooded. That holding continuity, that structure. So a death, lots of endings. And so when we're going through this dark night, we are experiencing probably a lot of pain, and we can go into suffering. And the more of us who are aware of the sacredness of this, that it is a soulful process, the more graceful we can be in supporting ourselves and each other through this process. It's when we are not able to trust this process, when we don't have a wider, broader, lighter context and perspective to this, that's when we can get stuck in the suffering. We go into doubt. We can even go into despair. And the inverted matrix energies can hook right in, and we can get stuck in feeling, just stuck, but in worthlessness and survival and despair, hopelessness. So the more we can become conscious of this process and work with this process, the more we can be gracefully flow through it. So surrendering, trusting, they're the two key words. Another word that my higher self has just brought in is patience and also forgiveness. Because in the dark night, we face our shadow. We face a lot of our fears. When those parts of ourself, our life, die, whether it's our way of life, whether it's our family, friends, other loved ones, be they human or animal, when any important aspect of our identity, any of that is forcibly often removed, then we can go into deep, deep grief. The dark night is often, we don't choose it, especially in a contemporary world. And that is why other cultures and societies that were held and consciously held within a spiritual awareness and a mystical awareness and a shamanic one, they would actually initiate the dark night. The whole community would assist individuals to go through initiations. That's what initiations are. Pilgrimages are part of that whole tradition. Vision quests, going out into the wilderness without the usual support. Because when we are in automatic in our everyday living, we become almost unconscious. It's automatic. The alarm is set every day. We wake up. We go into a routine where we become almost not robotic, but we do the same thing over and over again. And it's habitual. And we can literally lose ourselves in the everydayness of that. And when that habitual way of being, everydayness, structure, holding is ripped apart, or like the Tower card in tarot, then we are forced to wake up. We are forced to realize this is not, this experience in the physical is not infinite. And we are forced to be in the now moment. We come into alertness and awake. If any of you have experienced a lot of trauma, for instance, or any big major events, you feel very alive. You come out of that automatic way of being. That's one of the gifts. Another of the gifts is because this shakes up our ego, because our ego likes the automatic. It's safe, it's a structure, it's what we know. And when that's rattled, or the tower comes crumbling down, then that can enable our other aspects to come forward, because the ego is not in charge, and so our intuition can step forward and guide us. It also enables us to clear that which has been inconvenient for us to face. We've been too busy in our everyday lives to deal with any trauma, be it from past lives, future lives, parallel lives, ancestral. It all comes up to the surface. So this is assisting the collective in the shift, because individually we are all facing our own dark night of the soul. Because we are individuals, however, there is a collective moment where we have all reached, and so we're individually experience the dark night very, uniquely, but there is a general theme, and once we are aware of that, we can then feel held, because there's a group journey that is occurring. So I just want to add one more note. Because it's very powerful and profound, it can be really intense. One of the shadow aspects that can come up that's very linked to the ego trying to remain in control is what I describe as spiritual bypassing, or going into denial. And one structure that I found very supportive through this whole process is the stages of grief. Now, when you look through, there's different stages of grief. Often when people write it down or there's a chart, it can seem as if it's very linear, just because when we write in a linear way. But the whole process, and this is very key, it leads to another key point, the whole process of the dark night of the soul is not linear. It's not linear. The ego mind wants it linear, beginning, middle, ending. I'm doing this right, so I'll get to this conclusion because of A, B, and C. No, grief also is not like that. And so a very big part of the dark night of the soul is grief, because you're shedding and letting go of what was and what could have been, or what might be. It's shedding. So the collective is also experiencing a lot of grief. And grief is also part of the opening the heart. And so a key point of this dark night of the soul is, I like to bring in another metaphor, is we are thawing out our frozen hearts. This is not to say it in any judgment. I link that with also the inverted matrix of programming. A lot of us have been able to function by numbing, dialing down, numbing, freezing, not being, so we don't feel so much. And so when we go into the dark night of the soul, if we can embrace a process, we can be nurtured and held in that darkness like the seed is. And when we are embracing that process, we can then allow those hidden parts, and that's why it's called shadow, those hidden wounded parts to come up. So in the shamanic tradition, often we will go into the darkness, into the underworld. It's not hell, by the way, but it's in the hidden parts to retrieve those aspects, those soul parts that have been rejected, in exile. And we can be fearful of those wounded aspects. And so they can become like sort of skeletons in the cupboard. So the dark night forces us to be within that cupboard, open the cupboard door and go into that cave, go deeper down. And then we discover that those very aspects hold a lot of gifts. So for instance, people who have had trauma in their childhood sometimes do not remember whole periods of time within that childhood. And that those childhood memories and learning can then be locked away. Children have a lot of gifts, like psychic awareness, access to intuition, which if you've had, got a noisy car going by there, if you've had trauma in childhood, sometimes that is a reason why those psychic abilities, those gifts, then get dialed right down or hidden. So many, children, when it's inherently, we're born with those gifts to connect with the Fae, connect with other dimensions, see angels. And it's through the trauma, as well as the programming and having to function in the inverted matrix, that all of this out of necessity, I would say, gets dialed down because it hasn't been safe for a lot of us to be sensitive, be sensitives. And another word for psychic is sensitive. And so this is soul retrieval. We are, as a collective, retrieving those memories. People are remembering other soul lifetimes they've had, connections with galactic and other dimensions. This is soul retrieval. And so this is the huge gift of the dark night of the soul. And it's the soul remembering. You could say it's the human aspect, the ego, the inner child, the emotional body, even the mental body that goes through the dark night. But that's the emotion, feeling, trauma being cleared. The soul has to also go through this process, because the soul is the who we are, and the soul has chosen this arc, this learning, this pilgrimage. And so this dark night of the soul brings together also those different parts of mind, body, spirit. And that's another gift. All these parts come together in unison, and we start being able to have conversations between those different aspects of ourselves. When we're in the dark night of the soul, and when we surrender to this, and we cry out often, when you're in that depths of that place, and if you can remember, maybe you've experienced this, but I have had various dark nights, and when I have felt completely alone in the darkness, I have not been, everything feeling stripped away. There's nothing else left to lose, is the feeling. And when you haven't got it all sorted, your ego mind can't think your way out of it, and then you pray, or you exclaim, you cry out, or you meditate, whatever, it's that calling, it's please help me. I have been assisted most divinely in so many magical ways, profound ways. And so this is the other gift. We do not have to be all evolved and highly resonating in light to always connect with our guides, because it's about surrendering. So you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be all positive. Yes, that when you're in that frequency, then you're in with the other beings in that lighter frequency. You can see them and be with them very easily, or more easily. But it doesn't also mean that is the only way, because it is about surrender. And if you genuinely, authentically say, please help me, I don't know what else to do, they can come in, because we're giving them permission, for instance, the angelic ones, or Jesus, or whoever, to come in. So that's another gift. There's so many gifts. The wounded ego can no longer be in control. And so I have found that an immense gift, in that all those inverted matrix, personality traits, those coping mechanisms, where we think that is the way we should be. Until when we get into a dark night, we realise that they're not help. This way of coping doesn't help. Whether it's I've got to keep going, I've got to keep, whatever it is, the thinking, stiff upper lip we have in Britain, or we used to have in Britain, that phrase, don't show your emotions, I've got to be always right, I've got to get the top points, be in competition, get into the office much earlier than my colleagues, whatever it is, judging others, fearing being judged, all of that separation, ideology, I would call it. It's like an effing religion. When we're in the dark night, none of that works because we're out of control. The bigger forces have come into play. We then have to realise that other beings, maybe it's our family, our lovers, our partners, our pets, or whatever, beloved ones, they have their own soul journey which we do not have control over. Our ego mind does not have control over the soul. That's the other gifts. I mean, the more I'm sharing now, the more I'm realising there's gift upon gift. But there's a huge release when we face those shadow aspects, when we go, oh my God, I'm no longer, and this is not in a judging way, I was going to say a slave to these constructs, because when we enter the dark night, we're realising that might have worked for a while when our soul chose to experience functioning in a certain way. When we are entering or being in the dark night, we've outgrown those structures, and that's what's happening with the collective. We have outgrown the system and the structures, which pretty much, or some of the time, depending on where we chose to experience this, kind of worked. And then we outgrew this. And so this is where we are. And it's scary. We're in the phase of the caterpillar dissolving into liquid, but we are in a chrysalis. There is a divine purpose, a holding, a natural way. It's in our very being, our DNA, our soul, our higher self, in nature and the planetary earth, and how our sun is assisting the earth, and all the planets are coming into this cradle formation, and then we go wider and wider, and there's a big huge spiral. So we're part of this bigger journey, this bigger wheel that's clicked. Well, it's not clicked. It's moved into position over vastness of time, and so we're holding the vastness of this movement in our microcosm. So practical guidance, reminding ourselves and each other of this divine process, maybe reading up a little bit on alchemy or the mystics and the mystical path. The Sufi, they have that Sufi spiraling. That is what that's about. The Sufi path is about dissolving and being in that embrace of being dissolved into the beloved, and the beloved is all, and devotion. It's that devotional way, opening our heart, allowing ourselves to sing and devotion, singing, moving, dancing, being in the beauty of nature, but devotional bliss, but giving ourselves to that prayer, being in devotion, surrendering, but in a blissful way, in a creative way, is the antithesis of the 9 to 5, the robotic, the inverted matrix, the system. Hence, the inverted matrix is coming in with transhumanism and robotic and AI surveillance and it'll do what it'll do. This energy, the inverted matrix, will see from its own narrow-minded, blinkered view. It's useful. Computers are useful. This video, this camera, microphone, YouTube, very useful, but it's limited. The ego mind is useful, but it's not the whole totality of consciousness and reality. So we don't need to throw it all away. It's just realizing is part of the complexity, the divine complexity, not the inverted matrix enmeshment. So reminding ourselves and each other of the divine purpose of this, that it is part of nature, the light and dark. Just, when the sun goes down, the moon comes up, the dark night, and then there's going to be sun. There's going to be seasons. There is winter, spring, summer, and autumn. We are part of that. Nature is reminding us of that process all the time. There's, I would say, mystical art reflects this. Poetry of Rumi, certain paintings reflect this. So music reflects this. Certain practices like mindfulness walking, forest walk, bathing, being out in wilderness, unplugging from this system, going for a walk without the mobile phone, getting lost, going somewhere for a walk and getting lost temporarily. All of this can assist us to navigate and assist the intuition, the soul vibration, all the mind, body, spirit to come into working together again, because not relying on the system that we've become addictive to, the mobile phone. I saw an interview with two people, and one of them made this comment that the Apple phone or computer, but the image is an apple with a bite taken out of the apple. And there's interesting, I always thought that's an interesting, because I'm sure it makes reference to the tree of knowledge, that's in the Bible. Anyway, just remember there is a divine purpose. It is part of the mystical, the mythical is in the very word. There is what is being revealed through the darkness. It's not romanticizing about the dark. It's not about evil. It's nothing about that. No. It's not suddenly when you start wearing black. It is the natural process, like the seed in the earth. It's the shedding. It's the unknowing to then coming into rebirth. And when we are in the dark night, we can ask for assistance when we surrender and trust the divine purpose. So, I'm going to pull one from this pack and also from the Supra pack, which I seem to be going back to these two. See what... Ooh. I've got 7 of Wands. Now, right way up, it reminds me of my top though, I don't think my top's speaking about it, is this way. And so there's a lot of Wands is fire, and they're like batons, and there's a lot of battling with this. And there's like 7 of them, and there's that one on top. So it's managing to keep going. I'm going to keep battling. But it's this way. And I feel that's, in a way, a perfect illustration to what I've been describing about. In a way, when we're in the inverted matrix, we can often go, I'm going to keep going. I need to keep earning the money in order to pay the bills. It's survival. If we've got children, dependents, other maybe parents, what animals, I got to keep going. I got to show up, and yes, there's a positivity around that, but it can also be, we can be slavery to that, because then it can hinder our soul purpose for being here and our creative gifts. being able to be manifested. So we can be used to fighting and struggling, and like, this is all the, I got to keep going up. This is how I make my way up, and keep showing up and be strong. And I'm managing to keep on the top of everything. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep persevering. Like I say, it's not all negative, but then it was reverse, and so there is a questioning around that on, can I stop fighting? How much of my identity have I attached myself to being the one that fights, the one that's always there for everybody else, having to rescue the situation, for instance. But here it's like, oh, I'm just dropping everything. I'm just dropping it. And it can be scary, but it can be also necessary for us, part of the dark night of the soul, to go, I'm done fighting. I'm done trying to squeeze on, for instance, like I lived in London for a long time, and on rush hour the tube, and there's more and more people living in London. So rush hour on the tube, I hadn't for many years been on the tube, the underground, and I was staying with a friend, and I got on, tried to get on the train. It felt like a nightmare, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I thought, I can't. How can people live like this? Right, 7 of Wands. And so, in order to survive in that kind of environment, you need to shut down, because you're squashed like sardines in a carriage, which feels inhumane. You wouldn't choose to do that in any other situation. Oh yes, I'm just going to fling myself into a space where it can only hold 20 people, and now there's 100 of us, for instance. I got to put this. It's running out of energy. All right, let's see now. There we go. We wouldn't choose to do that. Well, unless you kind of really get a kick out of that. I don't know. But I got to get to work. I got to go on that carriage. This is what I have to do. And so it is. That's what I'm saying. To survive, we dial down, we freeze, we numb down. So we're not. It's thinking I got like upteen people's faces in my face. Right, 7 of Wands. Persistence, courage, challenge, defend. Yeah. One wand ascends against others. So there's a lot of competition. I've made it, like, going up the steps. Yeah, I made it, but I've got to keep going. And then it's like, what the hell happens if I let it all drop? How am I going to support myself? How am I going to be supported? There's a huge fear of, it's like a breakdown. The dark night of the soul can often be seen as a breakdown, but what if it's a breakthrough? What if it's like, sod it, this is crazy. This is not life. This is normalized, but this is not okay. It's not okay. Okay. So that's a great card to right. Right, look at another card. Oof. They're very buttery, these cards. Okay. I keep getting the same cards. So we got the Queen of Cups. It's like the sun and moon there, and she's also sunset or sunrise. So in flow with the emotions, trusting, coming to sovereignty. That's one of the gifts of the dark night, where we then know ourselves, know thyself first. Find the light within, being in flow, so that we can receive light and release, be in flow of what we are feeling, sensing. and therefore creating space so we can receive, being very, very open. It's very beautiful energy there. So I'm going to say one more. Okay, one more. Spirit, anything? One more. For okay, that one. Oh. 6 of Swords. There's a lot of movement. There's a rainbow there, but they're kind of going to a point. To me, it feels, again, what I've been talking about is the thinking, more in the thinking, the programming of this has to be the way I have to fit in. It feels like a fence, you know. I've got to stay in line. But what if it's not? To me, it looks like they're all slotting in. But what if, a different perspective is, what if they can be coming out? Maybe there is not just one way. We can pull them out as well. And the phrase, what is the point? What is the point of all this? Let me just look up what she says, 6 of Swords. Here we go. Voyage, healing, transition, and mental clarity. This card invites you to trust the path of movement. Allow yourself the space to let go, even without all the answers. Oh my goodness. This is spot on. There is healing in the motion itself, in the act of gently setting down what no longer serves and turning toward a new horizon. So the whole point of the Dark Night is we're not in the logic, it doesn't make sense, we can't figure it out, we can't talk ourselves out of what we are experiencing because we are expanding out of that box. Interesting. Okay, so quickly now, so I'm trying to keep it within not an hour. Let's get the Supra. So I just got a thought there, that you've got the 4 major archangels, and you've got Raphael in the east. You can say this is one map of moving and helping us to call in these 4 archangels. So Raphael of the east and air and the heart, healing. And then Archangel Michael, the sword, helping to cut away and protect, cut away the old and protection. And it's linked with fire. And Archangel Gabriel is linked with Western water, and speaking the truth of God, the word, the song. Archangel Ariel and sometimes Uriel, and sometimes they're both linked together, earth and north. That's that healing of nurturing, connecting with Mother Earth and nature. So any of those or all of those we can call on. For instance, in the Dark Night, I've also found a dragon to be a dragon energy. If you resonate with dragons, we have our own, as well as our own guardian angel. We also have a guardian dragon, and dragons, how they in the dark cave. There is I remember hearing Mark Rylance speaking about. I don't know where he heard this, but I really like it. that St. George and the Dragon, the original actual myth of St. George and the Dragon, is that St. George, when he's called to rescue the feminine, the woman, the maiden, from the dragon, he goes to the cave where the dragon resides, and he starts singing so the dragon can come out. But not only does he sing to the dragon and the dragon comes out because of his singing, the dragon then transforms into the woman and the maiden, and so the dragon is the woman, and so in a way he saves the woman, but she is the dragon. And I feel, for me, which is how I feel, Kuan Yin, I've got one image on one of my altars of Kuan Yin standing very gently on this beautiful water dragon, and the water dragon looks so cute. It's not, it's big and powerful, but it's very soft and very gentle, and she's just standing there very gracefully, and it just feels a beautiful union between the two. And so I have called on my dragon to in these times, and so the one guidance here is simplicity. And so when we move out of what comes up for me with that is when we move out of the inverted matrix complexity and enmeshment and knotting and binding and cording and confusion. It's a mess. And in a way, we go into the darkness. Everything is simplified. Things stripped away. We can't play along with the game anymore. It's like we just have to be in the stillness and sit and be. No more running away from actually being alive in the now moment. It's simplicity. So, wrong book. Right book. Simplicity. Keep it simple. Drowning in the mire of more knowledge does not mean wisdom. Not necessarily. You can learn lists of information, but are we wise? That's something different, I suggest. Simplicity. Timelessness resides in simplicity. It is a return to primal forms with an inner life that unfolds gently and naturally into truth. It directly is without any hesitation. Its elegant, barefoot presence is the measure of everything. And the key words are naturalness, essence, beauty, elegance, and timelessness. Interesting. I feel that, yes, it's like it's interesting. Simplicity. What comes to mind in my imagination there is somebody carving like a marble, a stone, and polishing a simple shape, but the shape is exquisite. And when this being is polishing this, it's like an egg. Of course it's an egg, because I'm talking about Dark Night and rebirth. It can sing. But this being takes a very, very long time with polishing the stone, because it's not forcing the stone into a shape. The very stone has a being, and the carver is not carving through force, but a tuning, and is tuning the shape, is finding the soul frequency to that element, the being that resides inside. And so this stone sings to the carver, and the carver is polishing the stone, or using, what do you call it, sanding it down very gracefully, very slowly. And I'm seeing that there, you could see that this artist, this carver, is one with the ocean and the waves, that polishes all those pebbles and stones, and the time is infinite and quantum and timelessness. And so this artist, creator, this carver becomes one with the elements and one with the ocean and the waves and the air and the salt, and tunes in, because we have that phrase, tunes in to the minerals, the quartz, how this stone was born, the journey this stone being made. And so we know that the quartz and the different stones have a song. The stones sing to us. And so this simplicity is timelessness, is not rushing, is not in reaction and haste. It's allowing that true wisdom, that journey that we take in the dark night, when we go on that vision quest barefoot, we feel those shards of stone and pebble and twig and bone. Maybe, at first our feet may be raw, but we then learn to walk barefoot again, to feel the earth once more, feel the rivers and the streams and the soil and the clay and the rock and the leaves. We learn to breathe clearly, simplicity. We take a breath, we pause. Our mind, the chattering noise, comes to silence once more, and so we find a place of being where we do not need to freeze or numb anymore. We can be in peace and grace, in that simplicity. We find ourselves in this infinite space, but are also held. And so we don't need more of this, that, and the other. We allow ourselves to feel and breathe and feel and breathe and be. And this has an energy, a frequency. And when we are in this space, this is when we feel in the vastness of this intimate circle. So, thank you for being you and joining me on this journey. And I'm completing there. Sending all of us always lots and lots of love. Thank you. And I look forward to sharing again tomorrow. Take care.